Today I'm going to show you what's inside of your sunroof and how it works to let sunlight into your car. Now there are two main modes to a sunroof, the first of which is the tilt function to vent out any hot air from the car on a warm summer day. Now the second function allows the sunroof to retract into the body of the car to allow the sun to bask on your bald head. So to remove the headliner, we need to remove the sun visor, the overhead console, some trim around the sunroof, as well as the A, B, and C pillars. And then remove the sun visor, and remove it. Then remove the seatbelt, and then remove the B pillar. I can pull down the headliner, and the headliner is now pulled down. This here is what the sunroof looks like when the headliner is removed. We have the motor that sits up here. Then on the two sides here, at the front, we've got two drains. Now usually sunroofs don't try to be waterproof and allow the water to come into the body and into this track here, and then into this tube and down to the bottom of the body. Now looking around the circumference, there's a bunch of 10mm bolts that hold this sunroof to the roof, and I'm going to remove those so we can drop down the sunroof assembly to have a closer look. And with all the screws removed, I can drop down the sunroof. So here we've got the sunroof removed from the vehicle. We've got this deflector flap here that's spring loaded, and you've got the sunroof that runs on the tracks on either side. You can see as it comes to the park position here, it actually tilts up so that the glass would be flush with the body. And then if you pull it in tilt mode, it actually tilts up a little bit further for ventilation. So if we take a closer look at some of the main components in this sunroof assembly, starting with, of course, the glass roof, which is tinted. We have the electric motor at the front here with its controller. We've also got the frame around here, which is made of a composite-like material, and it also acts to collect water. We've also got the shade that runs out of the back here. Now looking from the inside of the sunroof, I'm going to start by removing these Torx bolts here so we can get the glass panel off of the frame. And now with the glass free from the frame, I'm going to remove it. Now the glass itself is just a tempered glass for safety reasons. We've also got this soft plastic trim that goes all the way around that's bonded to the glass itself. And then these three little eyelets on either side here, that's the only thing holding this glass to the body of your car. We've also got this rubber that goes all the way around to form a nice seal against the body. I'm just going to release this shade over here. Now taking a look at the rest of the frame, you can see it is fairly lightweight here. Most of the holes that are drilled into it for mounting it to the body are actually a little bit larger than the bolt itself, which allows for a tiny bit of adjustment for that perfect seal against the body. Over here we have the brackets where the glass will attach to, and it's driven off of a belt system that goes around to the front here to this electric motor. Now one important thing to note is since the sunroof can't perfectly seal everything against water, the best it can do is actually just drain it away from the body and away from the cabin so that things don't get wet inside the vehicle. So it does that by actually having a collection track that goes all the way around the sunroof perimeter, and that water will actually build up inside of this channel here and come out through this spout over here to those tubes that we saw in the A pillar. Now what happens is sometimes leaves and debris can get clogged up inside of here, and that can cause a backlog of water, causing water to actually spill into the cabin. Now of course, since these tracks are open to the atmosphere, you also want to make sure that these are very well lubricated and kept free of any debris. We're going to check out what's inside this electric motor by removing these Torx screws. And now I'll just lift off this cover here. Now at the bottom here we have the little computer, and that tells the sunroof motor what to do, whether to slide, to tilt, and when to stop. Now I'm going to power up the motor so we can have a closer look at how the tracks actually work. Here we have the sunroof in its most tilted up position. You can see that the glass is going to attach to this member over here at these attachment points. It's also pivoted at the front here, so that's kind of how it gets that angle. We've got another pivot point over here as a control rod, and then the final pivot point, which is what's following this little cam slider over here, is adjusted by this point over here, which actually slides with the sunroof mechanism. So the position of this relative to this point over here is what creates the angle between the track and the actual glass. Now watch as I tilt the sunroof back down and move it back as the position of this little pivot point on the slider moves back towards here. Now inside of this little drivetrain we have a torque multiplication where this smaller spiral gear spins this larger intermediate gear. Now spiral gear is used so that the motor itself can drive the sunroof glass, but the glass, if forced, cannot drive back the motor. If the sunroof electronics don't work, you can actually remove this gear from inside the vehicle and operate the sunroof manually in case you need to close it and it's raining. And here we have the final drive gear here. We've got this little piece inside of here that has these two flat edges on either side, and then on the inside of the final drive gear we have these little spines here that correlate with the splines on this shaft. Now this gear train is pretty greasy, so I'm just going to come with my old shirt here, it's been a while, and wipe up some of that old grease. So I'm just going to remove these two Torx bolts here to unbolt the motor from the frame. And then I'll just remove this motor assembly, and you'll see that this has this little gear on the bottom here. Now if I remove this motor cover over here, you could see we have the rotor, and that spins with the gear train. We've also got two permanent magnets on the inside here, and then further inside of there we have the two brushes that contact the rotor over here. Now in addition, we have this little spinning magnet here that spins with the motor, and that sends a feedback signal to the computer so it knows exactly where this motor is positioned. So if we take a quick look at the schematic diagram for the sunroof, you'll see that we have the power block over here that supplies power to the body control module. That then supplies power to the sunroof motor assembly and computer, which also takes its signals from the switch, which is on the overhead console, to tell it to either tilt up or to slide backwards, and then it will move the motor accordingly. The body control module is what determines when the sunroof is allowed to open and close based on the time of when the ignition is turned off, and also the position of the two door switches on the front doors. Now unlike modern control systems, this sunroof assembly is only linked to the body control module for power only, and therefore you can't slide it or tilt it using your key fob because it's not linked to the rest of the system using CAN bus. Now next up, I'm going to remove this plastic shield here that forms part of the water channel. Now I'm also going to remove this wind deflector. You can see this here is where the spring attaches to. The spring is just made of spring steel, and it acts to keep the wind deflector up when the sunroof is open. Now over here you'll see the spiral gears where the motor teeth will actually lock into. Got a little bit of debris in there, so I'm just going to use my brother's toothbrush to clean this up. Now what's interesting is we have two spiral gears, one for the right side and one for the left side slider, that connect to this drive motor here, so they're both either moving together or moving apart from each other, so that the sliders can move simultaneously with each other back and forth. So looking closer, you can see when I'm moving the right side slider, it moves independently of the left side. Now in order to remain square in its tracks, we have this bar here that ties off the two ends. And I'll just remove that bar over there. I'm just going to go ahead and slowly remove this from the track. And then as I remove it off the edge of the track, you can see the end of the spiral gear here. That's where the gear would completely stop because the sunroof can't travel any further. And I'll just go ahead and remove this mechanism. You can see it's got the cable on it here that is actually running inside of this channel over here. Similarly, I'm going to drive off the slider from the other side and remove its cable from the channel. Now the rest of the frame is just a lightweight piece of aluminum that forms the channels for the water to flow and provides a little bit of rigidity to the roof. Now this mechanism is arguably the most important part of the system because it allows the sunroof to tilt and to slide back, and it's full of lubricating grease inside of here, so I'm just going to come in with my old t-shirt again and wipe this up. Ah, the good old days. We have this cable that's attached to this cam slider that goes into the second arm over here, and the position of this is what determines the angle of the glass. Now with the glass in the closed position, when a signal is sent to the motor to push this cable back, it's actually going to lower the sunroof into the body of the car by guiding it along this cam track over here. Now when it reaches over here, it's actually going to lock up with this mechanism. Now this mechanism is going to lock against this third arm over here, just like that, with this pin in here secured inside of the track, so it now becomes one piece, and any more pushing of this cable here is actually going to push the entire unit back, which is going to push the glass into the body of the car. Now when you want to close the sunroof, this pin here is going to hold everything together as one unit and pull the glass out of the body of the car instead of just sliding along this cam here. Now this pin here can only release from the carrier when there's room under here for it to slip open just like that. And when this little piece here slips into this little hole in the track, it then knows that the sunroof is in the correct position relative to the body, slips out of the carrier, and then it'll travel along here to raise the sunroof back into the body. Now with the carrier in this middle position, the sunroof is now flush with the body. If the cable is pulled on anymore, it's actually going to move the sunroof up into the vent position. Now the home position must be memorized by the sunroof computer, and that's why you have to do a reset procedure every time you disconnect your battery. So here we have a picture of the closed loop control system for the sunroof. It's powered by the body control module, and it actually takes inputs from the switches on the overhead console. It then sends a voltage out to the motor to either retract it or tilt it. At the bottom here we have a Hall effect sensor that sends a feedback signal to the CPU so it knows exactly where that motor is fully tilted or retracted, and it also will memorize its home position. The CPU will then know how many turns of the motor it takes to get to either one of those positions and drive the motor accordingly. The sunroof cable has this sheathing on the outside here that engages with the sunroof motor, but it also has this fuzzy pipe cleaner kind of feeling, probably to keep it clean as it moves within the track. So from a simple slider mechanism to gears on a motor and even complicated control systems, these are all the components that go into making the sunroof work in your car. Make sure you follow me on Instagram for more behind the scenes footage like this, and subscribe for more videos just like this one.